Nathalie Simper, and this is The Limitless Musician, a podcast by KE Creative. Our team helps modern musicians find modern solutions to building a sustainable music career. Along with my co-host, Dr. Catherine Eminent, we will help you learn what it takes to build a career that enhances your life instead of restricting it by becoming the limitless musician you are meant to be. Hey everyone, today it's just me, and here in the studio I've got two of my rescue dogs joining us today. We've got Grim the Shar-Pei mix and Teeth the Boxer mix. They're over here sunbathing because it's actually a really beautiful day today, and you may hear a couple of like huffs and puffs or tag jingles throughout the episode. Before I really get into this episode, I also just want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you who have reached out to me and Catherine since we launched the podcast a few weeks ago, letting us know what you've enjoyed in the first few episodes, as well as the things that you want to hear from us in future episodes. This podcast really is for all of you. So please, please, please send me a message on Instagram if you have feedback or ideas. And we're going to be rolling out an episode every 2 weeks on Wednesdays. So keep an eye out if you have any recommendations to see if they've made it into the next episode. Right now in KE Creative Land, Catherine and I are working with musicians who are looking to take their music careers and their private music studios to the next level in a way that embraces their unique skill sets. Of the hundreds of musicians we've gotten to know and help along their journeys, a common theme that I've been noticing is that most musicians struggle to balance work and a personal life. And I think the thing that I hear the most from these musicians is, I never learned how to do that when I was in school. It's not like you're taking courses on how to manage yourself as a business, the psychology behind self-care, or how to optimize your life. And if you did learn those things in music school, then you're part of a lucky few. So this episode is going to be all about the work mindset for musicians. Everything I remember learning about balancing work and life in school was not so much of a balance and more of tipping the scales to favor practicing, gigging, and building up your professional resume. Professors framed it as, this was how it was when I was a student, or this is just what you're going to have to do in order to survive in the business. But the longer I've been in the real world as a career musician and have talked with my fellow musicians, the more that I know that finding balance between work and life comes from adapting to the way the world is now, not the way it was in the past. Modern careers require modern musicians who are going to find sustainable solutions to the age-old question of how to have a career and a personal life. If you've ever felt guilty for wanting to do more than just work 24/7, wanting to say no to gigs, and not wanting to touch your instrument for weeks at a time, then this episode goes out to you. Whether you're listening in the car, knocking out emails, or taking your coffee break, I hope this episode can give you some food for thought and inspiration about how you can reframe your perspective about work and its place in your life. So the first thing I want to talk about are two mindsets, which are living to work and working to live. When you live to work, you are super passionate about what you do. Work is the priority of your life, meaning it often comes before human relationships, hobbies, and your life outside of your professional responsibilities. For musicians, this can look like teaching private lessons every single day of the week, driving around for every gig that you're offered, and moving around personal commitments in order to accommodate those performance opportunities that pop up. When you work to live, the second mindset, then you work enough to support yourself and your household so that you can have the life that you want. And you often look for higher pay and lower stress jobs so that you have energy for your life outside of work. And I don't know about you, but higher pay and lower stress sounds like a dream for a musician. Now, when I was doing my research to see what the standard definitions and perspectives of these two mindsets were, the thing that kept popping up about those who work to live is that working to live basically means choosing a comfortable job rather than hard work, long hours, and always going the extra mile to advance your career. When I read that, it kind of sounded like code for someone who's lazy, wants to work as little as possible, and will only do the bare minimum. And you're probably sitting there thinking, like, Nathalie, who wants to be seen as a lazy slacker with no ambition? Guaranteed that nobody wants to be seen like that, especially musicians. So, is it really a surprise that musicians prioritize work to the extreme to avoid the possibility of even being perceived as someone who lacks the discipline and work ethic to succeed? It starts to make more sense that musicians are constantly pushing themselves so hard to prove that they're serious, that they're dedicated, and that they even deserve their career. And I'm going to be honest, the more I read, the more frustrated I got because the qualities of a person who lives to work, according to what I was looking at, ranges from being unlikely to be super wealthy to being less likely to be an entrepreneur or advance professionally. And if you put this in the context of a music career, it kind of sounds like you'll never have an expendable income and you'll never succeed on your own. And if you're taking that kind of attack to heart, it can totally feel devastating. And like there is no other choice than to be a workaholic so that you can succeed and so that you can have that perception of being successful. So, in the battle between live to work and work to live mindsets, it kind of sounds like it's obvious that living for your work wins by a mile, right? But before we call it, let's take a step back. Classical musicians work for themselves, make financial and personal sacrifices in order to increase their income, and have to adapt to their environment in order to advance their career, which are hallmark characteristics of entrepreneurs. But classical musicians also experience an incredibly high rate of burnout and exhaustion in their careers. A 2016 study on mental health for professional musicians in Britain revealed that among over 2,200 self described professional musicians, 68% experienced depression and 71% experienced anxiety and anxiety attacks. Even though this study was only surveying a specific region, imagine if that reflected the entirety of professional musicians. And Teef is over here like huffing and puffing. So even he's a little frustrated. Just let it sink in. That's more than half of us musicians struggling with depression and anxiety. As you're listening, I bet your own experiences of depression, anxiety, and mental exhaustion come to mind, or conversations you've had with your musician friends who feel mentally drained from the pressures of being a professional musician. You may have even questioned why you even chose to be a musician in the first place. And maybe you've done that more than a few times. I know I have. So, what does this have to do with living to work? Well, the main disadvantage for living to work is, and you may have already guessed it, burnout and stress that affects your mental and physical well being. If you're constantly being told that you're going to be viewed as lazy if work isn't your main priority, it's no wonder that so many career musicians are experiencing burnout just to build their professional reputation and resume. And what is the cost of burnout in a nutshell? Well, you sleep less, you stress more, you live in a constant state of putting out fires, you may develop health conditions or issues, and more seriously, your life expectancy can decrease by up to 3 years according to the American Medical Association. It literally affects everything. So even though working to live doesn't sound appealing as being perceived as lazy or not ambitious, I bet that the mindset around living to work doesn't sound so appealing either. Like, I would rather be alive and cuddling with my dogs on the couch over there than slowly draining my life force in the name of professionalism. But I was totally there 3 years ago. I was chugging away, doing the things the way I was supposed to, according to the traditional classical musician career paths. I had a full private studio, taught at a private college. I was traveling all over my state for gigs. And the only real social life that I had was coming home to say hi to my husband and my dog before doing it all over again the next day. I was feeling super, super successful. But under the surface, my body was internalizing all of the stress from this nonstop work life. And I was missing all of the warning signs. When I finally realized that I needed to stop, it was a little bit too late. I had to take a medical leave for my own private studio, and I ended up being bedridden and needing 2 surgeries to fix the damage from all the stress I had been carrying around for so long. And let me tell you, I was terrified of talking about it with anyone, especially my musician colleagues, because I didn't want to seem incapable or any less committed than the other musicians around me. I didn't want anyone to think that I was lazy, that I wasn't serious about my career. And I distinctly remember going to a gig rehearsal less than a week after being bedridden for a month. Like, I literally sat there trying to look like, business as usual. But it took everything in me to sit there and try to play at my best. I knew that I was dead serious about my career. So serious, in fact, that I was sacrificing myself in the process. If you've ever experienced a moment where you have to choose between your career and your life, just know that no one is going to judge you for prioritizing your life over your career. And if they do, that's a them problem, not a you problem. And if that's the only thing that you remember and take away from this episode, then this is totally time well spent for me. The reality is that the mentality of living to work and working to live both have their advantages and setbacks in their extremes. But what if you could take the best of both mindsets? What if you could have a career that you absolutely loved, that paid you what you're worth, and that allowed you to have time to enjoy everything and everyone else around you that you care about? This is where those modern musicians come into play. Musicians like you who are living and working now and who can learn from the things that didn't work for musicians in the past. As modern musicians, we have exponentially more resources at our disposal now than musicians did 10, 20, and 30 years ago. There's a special balance that you can find where you have time to perform, teach, compose, take on other projects, and also have those hobbies, take vacations, and have a social life that doesn't revolve around the gigs that you're taking. And you can strike that balance in a way that may not look like the traditional music career path or even like your friend's music career path, but it's going to be a path that prioritizes you. After my many health scares in 2022, I knew that I needed to change, but I was unsure where to start. And frankly, I was a little worried about how it was going to go. Well, at the time, I was working with a coach, and they were really encouraging journaling, which, if you haven't done journaling, I totally recommend, even if it's just for a season. Because one of the journaling prompts I remember having to complete was answering the question, What do I need to be happy? It seems like such a simple question, but oh my gosh, it was a really tough one to answer because honestly, I hadn't really spent enough time with myself to know the answer because I was too busy working 24/7. I also didn't want to seem self centered or selfish by focusing on my needs above the needs of my family, my friends, and my colleagues. But once I answered that question, it really set things in motion for me to structure my work life in a way that allowed me the right to have a personal life because you do have a right to have a personal life. So if you're wondering how to shift your career to fit your life instead of the other way around, start by asking yourself, what do you need to be happy? Your needs can be general or they can be specific. Like, I need a predictable routine. I need 9 hours of sleep. I need time with my family. I need a sense of community and belonging. Or I need more than one project or focus in my career. Once you start thinking about the things that you need to be happy, these can begin to paint a picture of the life you need your career to fit into. Think about the things or the people that you cherish. Find a place in your regular routine that brings you joy, that charges your batteries, that motivates you to be yourself and to be a musician. Because at the end of the day, your gigs are going to come and go. But those things that bring you joy and energy and motivation, those are the things that you want to be around for a lifetime. So, once you've reflected on the things that you need to be happy, these are going to help you uncover boundaries to establish between your personal and your work life. And it can seem like a huge undertaking to establish boundaries when every single day or every single week can look different from the next. You're not always going to have the same gigs each month. Your private students may cancel, and inclement weather could completely derail your week. But setting boundaries around the things that are more predictable can make the stress from unpredictability hurt a little less because you're operating with more energy and a fuller battery. Maybe boundaries look like only teaching lessons on certain days, going to bed or waking up at the same time every day, padding your schedule with time for mental breaks, or saying no to gigs, students, and opportunities that don't really align with your long term goals. And you might be saying to yourself, well, maybe I don't have the luxury of saying no to something, especially when it means turning down income. But if you can fill the same time by working towards an opportunity that will increase your income, value your time, and bring you genuine fulfillment, then that trade is going to build a stronger foundation for you to nurture growth rather than resentment in your career choices. In an industry where success can come in all shapes and sizes, you can curate the things you want without sacrificing yourself to the ethereal music career gods. You can love being a musician and still want time away from your instrument. You can be passionate about your music and still need time to be passionate about other things. You can be ambitious without sacrificing who you are outside of being a career musician. That last one really resonates with me. When I look at the things I'm doing professionally now versus what I was balancing 3 years ago, I definitely have way more projects and jobs now, but the stress and anxiety that I feel with what I'm doing now is nowhere near the danger zone that it was in 3 years ago. And as I've been working to establish boundaries between my personal life and my work life, The best hack that I've used so far is setting on and off hours between my personal time and my work time. And honestly, most of the credit for that goes to my husband, Alex. I am such a recovering people pleaser, and I used to give a lot of my time away. I would let my private lessons run over their end time. I would say yes to gigs, even if I didn't really want to take them. And I was like totally a textbook workaholic. But the second a lesson ran over time, Alex would be texting me, like, "Are you giving lessons away for free now?" Or he would come into the studio with my dinner. So I really had no choice but to wrap up whatever lesson I was giving. At first, I thought it was a little silly. And, I was honestly a little annoyed too, because it's not like I was showing up to his job to make sure that he was clocking in and clocking out on time. But it really put into perspective how often I allowed work to bleed into my personal time and how it was affecting my relationships with my family at home and with my friends. Now, I really value having dedicated time to be on the clock for all of my various projects and professional responsibilities, and dedicated time to be off the clock in order to make memories, appreciate my hobbies, and to just feel present with my family and my loved ones. So let's go ahead and take a moment, and I'm going to pull together some nuggets of knowledge here that will help you reframe the way that you are approaching the balancing act between music and the rest of your life. First, you are being pressured to overwork yourself to prove your value as a musician and a professional. Burnout feels inevitable, but it doesn't have to be. Second, you can make different decisions by asking yourself, what do you need to be happy? The answers will reveal your true priorities outside of your career. And these answers will offer a blueprint for how you can set your schedule and routine moving forward. Third, reflect on what you're getting in exchange for your time. Saying no to things with a purpose can give you more time, energy, and fulfillment to get closer to the career that you want and that you're going to enjoy. If you're listening and thinking, well, this sounds all nice and dandy in theory, but when will I ever find the time to just completely transform my life? Transformations like the ones you see in Disney princesses are fabulous and all, but real change is going to come from those little decisions that you have to make every single day. When you prioritize your wellness in the smallest choices every day, you and your career are going to reap the benefits for more than just that one day. You will have the energy to practice. You will have the desire to do more than just show up. You will feel excited about the non music things in your life. You will want to give more, do more, and contribute more to your community. You will have a greater appreciation for the musicians around you who are just people too. You will find joy in being true to yourself and having a purpose beyond just being a career musician. Finally, I would like to leave you with a challenge to find one opportunity today to choose yourself. As a musician, you know all too well that the more you practice something, the better you get. So I hope that you will take an opportunity today to practice choosing yourself and taking one step closer to a balanced and more fulfilling work life and personal life. That's all for today's episode on The Limitless Musician. If you liked this episode, follow us on Instagram at The Limitless Musician to tell us what you want to hear next. Remember to subscribe to our newsletter to get exclusive content that won't show up anywhere else by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time.